the images you are about to see, they are just some research material there I arranged to present to you. So let's see the teaser, please.
Temos que distinguir entre estar num mundo civilizado, estar numa cidade, acompanhar os nossos concidadãos e não os deixar como se fosse um gatinho ou outro animal que morre. O ser humano é diferente.
Yeah, it's a very short clip. I want to film these volunteers, and I want to know what are their motivation, why they go to these funerals. Also, I want to know what are how do they relate with death. This is my main focus. Also, it's very important to me to understand all the process behind these funerals of people who went with a number only, without a name, without nothing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vita. So, Greece into the land of ice and fire. Dimitra, it's your turn.
Thank you. Hello. My project, Into the Land of Ice and Fire, was initially inspired by an indigenous tribe of the way far north, the European Arctic, that I happened to visit and come in touch with 15 years ago, when I first visited this distant land for the first time as a photographer, to be able to see and photograph the landscape and the people, initially out of curiosity and of love for indigenous tribes. And then during these 15 years since the first time, I have visited the place through different times and seasons of the year, another 3 times. So I've been there 4 times. And to photograph. And this project happened to take form in my mind about 2 years ago, when I took the decision to start to make a documentary, not about them, but inspired from the landscape and their way of living. And finally, it took the form of a 2 character-based film, having as its main characters, on the one side, an old traditional Sami woman, Sara, 76-year-old, who is a traditional, one of the last remaining healers and storytellers and craft makers of the region. And on the other side, a young boy of 4.5-year-old at this time, Yune, who is just at the beginning of his life, and he's required through his tribe to be slowly initiated to the knowledge and customs of his people without really wanting to. So the initial filming began this past January, a few months ago, when I first went there to film during the winter season. The outside filming that you will see in the initial trailer was shot with about minus 30 degrees Celsius. And I don't think it was just done in order to have some visual material in order to be able to promote this film. So it's not a trailer of a finished documentary that can be representative of an entire film, but it is only representative of my first initial shooting that took place in the winter. And I just came back a few days ago from a second filming that I did alone because of a very, very low budget that took place in the beginning of their spring season when the landscape had totally changed. So what we'll see now is just the winter shooting. Thank you.
Tiedätkö, mä näin vähän feillä, vähän suhpe. Täältäkö loit suojaväivän pitstä? Tän kehtsällis, ettei kuonkas. Tätä kai sä ettei nuu finnis.
Manale maistohpo ja manale mai hästä jo. Manale mai soha ja manale jo puu. Heo lo le le lo.
păi
Wanted to add that the documentary is planned to happen in at least 3 different times of the year, because with the change of the seasons, different activities and the life of those people totally change. So the next is the summertime, when everything becomes green in this landscape. And they have a very traditional activities with cloudberry picking and other things that make their life possible through the winter. Thank you.
Thank you. So we stay in Greece, project number 8, architectural autobiographies. Irini? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Irini. The project is called Architectural Autobiographies, and it's a documentary series. So it's hard enough to find funding for one documentary. Imagine for 15 of them. So this is a documentary series destined mainly for TV broadcasting. And it's about buildings that talk, or buildings that we make them talk. So it's the idea is to create a hybrid of a historical with an architectural documentary. Basically, we choose buildings or open spaces based on how good a story they have to tell us, and not so much based on their architectural value. So we're trying to recreate the experience of being there, and we will try to go a step further and actually bring this building and bring its past life, bring its past residents into life and make them speak to the audience. The structure we propose is that we meet this space or this building during the day. We follow a little bit its daily life through the point of view of some of the people that actually work there. Maybe it's a guard, maybe it's a person from the maintenance. And then when the night comes, the door closes behind us and we stay alone in the building. So what happens is that through voiceover and sound, we hear fragments from the life of its past residents. It's not a voiceover that tells us the story in a chronological way. It's more a voiceover that reads fragments from letters or from paper articles or from descriptions about this particular building or this particular space. what is important is that the choice of the subject for each episode is connected with the part, with the key event, or with the key figure from the Greek history. So it's basically an attempt to make a dramatized historical documentary using actually space and buildings in major Greek cities. I don't know, we don't have a trailer yet. Maybe I could give an example of one of the buildings, if that would make it more clear. There is a building in Thessaloniki which is currently used as a pinakothek for the city, and that house used to be the residence of a Jewish family in the beginning of the century, when Thessaloniki was a very multinational city. The daughter of this, of Dino Fernandez, who was the main resident, she fell in love with a Greek Christian military guy, and she was voluntarily abducted by him. They got married, and this was like a huge scandal for the city. And later on, this family, like during the Second World War, they were sent and they finally had a tragic death in an extermination camp. So it's, their life is very, it shows us like a lot of things from the history of the whole city. So yeah, that's basically it. Thank you very much.
Angelini? So we go to number 9, Pastoral Odyssey. Marie from France, welcome.
Thank you. So for people that I didn't meet, I am Marie de Villegérard from Les Films du Présent. This is a French production company, and I work there since 3 years. I am in charge of the development of the documentaries. And just a few words about the company. We, since 15 years, we are based in Arles, and since 15 years, we make documentaries that question today's world through art, culture, citizen, and social issues. We aim at working with European and international co-producers, and today we wish to welcome fiction and animation filmmakers and also transmedia projects. And about the creative documentary project Pastoral Odyssey by Lionel Roux. So to start, everybody has to make a choice in his life. When we are young, when we are teen, we have to choose what we want, what we would like to do during our life as a job, and we want to choose a job that will be in harmony with our values. And I think for people who work in artistic and cultural fields like us, it is more true. And Pastoral Odyssey is a documentary about the choices that we have to make in our life. So I met the director, Lionel Roux, for the first time 3 months ago. It was during a photographic exhibition about pastoral culture in the region of Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur in the south of France. And I saw pictures that was beautiful about ships and landscape in the Arles area, in the region of Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur. And they were original because they were taken from a dispositif that the photographer, Lionel Roux, called the nacelle. He was 16 meters from above the soil, and so he has a new point of view about the landscape. And I saw portraits of shepherds with their testimony describing their activity and why they have chosen this job, why are their expectations, what are their vision of the future. So I met, after the exhibition, I met Lionel Roux, and I was fascinated by his story because Lionel Roux is a grandson and a son of migratory shepherds. And his grandfather, his grandfather, talked about shepherd activity with passion. His father was more pessimistic, and thinking the activity was rude and without future, not connected with the modern world. So he put his son, Lionel Roux, to not become a shepherd because it was too difficult. Lionel Roux was passionate by photo, so he became a photographer. But what it is funny or fascinating is that today he is 22 years old, and during the last 20 years he took pictures of shepherds. First his family, then the neighbors, then his friends, and then he joined a group of, I don't know how to say, men who shear the sheep, I think shearing men. And he joined a group of shearing men and traveled in Spain, in Italy, in Greece, in Africa, and in France to meet shepherds. So during the last 20 years, he kept a link with the pastoral universe of his childhood through his profession as a photographer. And when I met him, he told me that he wanted to make a documentary about those people, those women and men, because he knows shepherds around Arles, and there are women and men who are from a pastoral family, but also from outside. There is, for example, a girl who was an accountant, and she decided to leave her job to practice this activity with more in harmony with her values. So Lionel wants to meet these people and to share with us their values, their activity. He wants to understand the reality of this activity with an activity practiced between tradition and modernity, because these shepherds have chosen to practice the activity without turning their back to contemporary society. And he wants to understand what these people saw in this activity than his family and himself didn't see 20 years ago. So with Pastoral Odyssey, we will follow the director, Lionel Roux, who will meet the different shepherds that he knows. So, for example, there are 5 characters. There are Lionel Escoffier, who is a shepherd. He is 40 years old as well. He is like a mirror for Lionel Roux, the director, because they knew each other from the childhood, and become every time Lionel meet him, so meet the shepherd Lionel, he have the impression that he could be this guy. And what he loves with this guy is that he's so shepherd, but he's in link with the modern society. He goes to the theater, he used to go out, etc. We will meet also a young couple of shepherds, and Lionel told me that if he knew this guy 20 years ago, maybe he could be shepherds, but he didn't. And we will meet also Lionel's uncle, who were a shepherd, but who left this job to become, how do we say that? A bricklayer, to work on the masonry. And we will meet also the woman that I spoke before, who is 35 years old, and she was an accountant in Britain, and she decided to become a shepherd because it was more with her ideas. And we will meet also a young guy who will go, who is studying in the shepherd school. And we will meet these different characters during different sheep activities, like transhumance, like at the market where business is doing, and during on the pasture on the mountains. So this is for the project. So the project is at the early stage of the development, and I am aware that we have to work with the director about the film that he wants to make. And yes, I think he has to work with a scriptwriter on the dramatic structure and to write a treatment. He has to do some research trip, and we will see after that. We applied for scriptwriting support from the Région PACA, and we applied for development support from the French Society for Producers, Prociré Pangoa. We will have the answer at the end of the month, so we will see with those funds what we can do. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. This wonderful French accent.
You Danes don't have any accents, do you?
Well, we have a terrible accent when we speak English. And I've always loved the French accent in terms of English speaking. Sorry. The project number 10, Fatherland. Sarah. A slight Yemeni accent, maybe? No?
Very neutral accent. Hi, my name's Sarah Ishak. This film, Fatherland, is a personal story. It's a film that began last year when I traveled back to Yemen in February, just at the beginning, just before the revolution in Yemen started. Now, the reason I went back there was because I hadn't been back in 4 years. And basically, in that period, a rift had had begun, but also increased and developed between myself and my father. When I returned to Yemen, all these preconceived ideas that I had about the relationship between myself and him, which also had an impact on my perception of my identity as a Yemeni, began to change. And one of the main catalysts for that change really was the revolution that was going on outside. So the film doesn't really focus too much on what was happening outdoors. So it's not really a revolution film, although I have the material and I have the content. I have about 36 hours of footage. But it's more to do with the dynamics and the shifting dynamics between individuals and between myself and my father, and the way our relationship changed. The film has quite a humorous tone. It's really about people and their relationships and the humanity, really, of some of the incidents that we come across, and the universality as well of that conflict. Really, sometimes, well, most of us, I think, have between ourselves and our parents, and how we perceive them to be, and sometimes, if left unresolved, how they can fester for a while, and then before you know it, you haven't spoken to your father or your mother for 4 or 5 years, and then you realize that actually there's nothing there for you to worry about in the first place. So I'd like to show you a trailer. It's a 3.5-minute trailer, which doesn't really represent exactly what I want to show in the film. I don't really want to focus on the revolution on the outside, but rather the revolution on the inside, and how that the whole perception of identity and nationality and all these things are very vague and very transient and constantly shifting and changing. But I really do want to focus more on the characters, and they're really my father and my grandfather, in particular my relationship with my father in the film. Just one more thing I want to mention before, just to give you an idea, because the film kind of talks a bit about marriage, and it's not really the main theme of the film, but it's something that represents the expectation, really, that my father and the culture had, and maybe has still to some degree, of me as a Yemeni female. My father tried he suggested marriage at the age of 12. So it was the first marriage proposal I got was when I was 12 years old. And then after that, he tried again when I was 15, and it was a bit more serious, a bit more of a serious attempt to get me married off. But this sort of, the subject of marriage and settling down and being living the conventional Yemeni lifestyle was, it's ever present. And but then throughout the film and during the period that I was there in Yemen for 5 months, things did begin to change. And I want to show that throughout the film. But I'll let you see the trailer.
أنا شوف على إعلان في اليمن تايمز صارت حاج مرأة شاطرة ذكية جميلة غير مزوجة رقم تلفون أبوها اتصل.
I'm half Yemeni, half Scottish, but have lived in Scotland for the past 10 years. My mom and dad met in Edinburgh in 1980 when they were both at college. They married a few months later and moved to Yemen when I was 2 years old. I lived a very different life in Yemen. I got my first marriage proposal at age 13. I studied Islamic law with a prominent scholar until the age of 16. But when I came back to Edinburgh, things changed. I became a yoga teacher and decided to take up filmmaking instead. Age 27, I'm the eldest of my dad's children, yet still unmarried, while the majority of my friends in Yemen are. When I decided to go back to Yemen after 4 years of absence, it was an opportunity to see if I could be there on my own terms. My biggest worry, however, was that I would be pressurized into getting married. But little did I know that everything was changing, and that would be the least of my worries.
احنا في لندن، ما في اليمن. طيب ايش اطلع اصور ما فيها يا اخي. ابراهيم هذا اكيد. وعاد ما شدخش الكاميرا نزل.
It will be visible from the gate.
I wouldn't put you at risk يا عمو، أنا ما شجعش أخرج وهذا ومرق في ناس.
شيني هرب كذا وإنه هو العسكري من هنا بيضرب راس بالرشاش لهنا لقدام. جنبي.
لا 15
شيء يخطب. طيب
15 جو للبيت قلت لبابا الولد الرجل هذا كبير في السن.
ما أعرف.
أصلح ودبيه قلت له ليه سهل الحب حيجي.
بالعكس والله ما مثل.
والله ان انتم قلتوا هكذا. كيف عادنا ذاكر هذا الموضوع؟
انا ما اعرفش لو قد وافقتي قد
ماشي
انت والبنات.
ما اتفقش انا واي حد.
علي صالح دكتاتوري. علي صالح دكتاتوري. علي صالح دكتاتوري. علي صالح دكتاتوري.
خاصة الحين الثورة عاد تجي الحين كل شيء يتغير كل شيء حصل خلاص من منجزات الثورة صارت تلقى لها زوج.
ما بندوش على زوج.
إذا هو أنت بتلقي لي زوج أما هم يلقوش ماشي المشكلة هذا أنت موجودة. المشكلة مش فيش أنت هل عاد الوافقي على زوج يجي لك؟ أجاوبي تلفونك الحين. Give me a break.
Minutes of 36 hours. But it doesn't really show much here, but the film is really focused on, and the majority of my footage is footage inside the house and, you know, just the everyday activities, but really focusing on the relationship with my dad and how at the beginning of the trip, you know, we had some, quite a few sort of difficult conversations that I thought were difficult in my head, but then they just, you know, they ended up being nothing. You know, they seemed quite trivial afterwards. But it's really, you know, I was there for long enough, for a good 5 months, to pick up on these really, you know, clear changes that were happening in myself, in my dad, and also in the relationship between us. So, yeah.
Thank you. So back to the cold north. Norway, Trude, project number 11, Polar Zone Prayers.
That lady is not the last one who knows Sami craft, handicraft. It's many, many who still is doing a lot of handicraft with Sami.
Sorry, I didn't say
oh, no.
One last one who does handicraft. I said she's one of the last healers of the area.
Okay. No. Okay. My name is Trude. I come from Norway, and I'm here on behalf of Sandra, the filmmaker. She is a Norwegian lady converted into Islam from many years ago. And she's actually the leader of the mosque in Tromsø. And now she wants to make a film on a subject she's been interested in for a long time. She and her husband has been interested in the prayer time problems Muslims in the north are facing due to midnight sun, when the sun never goes down, and the dark period when the sun never comes up. And since Muslims are supposed to pray when based upon sunset and sunrise, it's a bit difficult. And it's been a lot of discussions how they should solve this problem. But since none sort of Islamic societies was established in the north before, the Islamic scholars never sort of bothered to find a solution for them. But since more and more Muslims are now settling in the north, they are sort of forced to find a solution to the problem. And last year, the first Islamic scholar came to Tromsø to do some research, together with the research team, because he's an Islamic scholar on Islamic laws. Yeah. So someone asked him, did God forget the Arctic region, since he didn't take into consideration that it would be impossible for Muslims in the north to sort of obey the laws that God set for Muslims. And he has been there several times, and Sandra wants to make a film sort of following Abdulaziz, this Turkish scholar, and follow his mission to prove that God didn't forget the north. He claims that it was done a mistake under the Ottoman period. Before, Muslims were using the light on all the local places instead of using timetables for the set of the prayer times, sort of. Yeah, but it's a lot of Islamic scholars that think he's doing the wrong research, and yeah, he's facing a lot of obstacles on the way to making a new fatwa on this problem. Yeah, and she hasn't really started her filming. She's only done some initial shooting when the research team was in Tromsø last year. So I have with me a small trailer, but she said it's not the way she wants the film to be, and it's also when it's a voiceover. Yeah, voiceover. So it's not the way she wants the film to be, but it's just sort of, there you see the main character. She wants Abdulaziz, the Turkish professor, to be the main character in the film, and sort of follow his journey to finding a solution, and if he can get his fatwa sort of through the other scholars. Yeah, so the question is, should Abdulaziz be the main character in the film, or should the local Muslims that are facing the problem in their everyday life sort of be the main character? So, yeah. Yeah, maybe we should see the, yeah?
A Turkish committee is in Tromsø to observe the twilight of the polar nights. They are surprised to find so much light in the sky during the day. Based upon their findings, they decide to challenge the established fatwas on the subject for the polar zone prayer times. The Turkish committee approached the local Muslims for help to find a good location to observe.
You can come at 5:30, and we can put us there, that place.
They take the cable car to the mountain for a better view. The sky is clear, but the temperature is -15 and very windy.
There was a mistake in the prayer time at the Ottoman Empire period. And this mistake, this timetable is taken from me by all the Muslim countries, and this mistake continued till now.
In June, the Turkish group is back in Tromsø to observe the midnight sun. No internet. They have a local Muslim with them as a guide. During their stay, it is partly overcast, and they are not able to do the observations they were hoping for.
You cannot see from the clouds.
What an amazing program. Andrew Wenham introduces the Turkish group to the Muslim leaders in Tromsø.
12 degrees or whatever the right angle is, what it is today, and you have observed it.
They are not agreeing amongst themselves upon which system to follow for the prayer times.
Doesn't change.
So it's not enough 2 or 3 days to research this problem. This is a big problem. It's not only the northern Norway. It's also in Finland, Sweden, in Alaska. South Polar or North Polar.
Yeah.
So it needs time.
When I read ayat concerning about this problem, I saw that we must find a solution, real solution, for the timetable in the Arctic region.
And the reason why the problem is so interesting now is because it's for the first time since the Muslims were established in the north, they're facing Ramadan during summer period. And if they're supposed to obey sort of the rules, then they should fast for 23 hours. So it will be impossible. And they don't feel, they have contacted several scholars to get sort of answers, what should we do, and but they don't feel that they are real or good Muslims when they sort of find out their own rules and not obey what the Quran says. So if this Turkish scholar can come up with an agreement that says you are following the Quran by doing this and following this new fatwa, then they can be sort of good Muslims again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Project number 12, Marco. Where are you? There you are. Demokratia. Welcome.
So, hello, I'm Marco Gastin. So I will present with my colleague here. It's a collective project called Demokratia. It's about the Greek elections happening now. So I will ask, there's a collective project. As I said, there we are 5 or 6 filmmakers. Initiated this project as a producer and as a coordinator of directors. And there are here 2 directors. It's Yanis and Haris. I will ask Yanis to say 2 words about the project.
I think you told everything I was to say, but anyway, I mean, it's a collective documentary with 5 directors. We are in a junction, historical junction in Greece, these elections, and I think also in Europe. So we follow 5 candidates during the rally to the elections of the 6th of May. But we have a little problem that we have new elections now. So I don't know, this is, I will say very few because we have some raw material to show. Haris, do you want to say something? Material.
So the film is most in advance than the trailer because we have shot already almost all the film. And we haven't made the trailer yet, but it will be ready, don't worry, on Friday. So I will show you some raw material. It's not subtitled in English, so I will comment it. Please, number 12. If I could back in October 2009, and the national duty called me to make decisions like the one I had made, as a Minister of Interior, I do the same. The country has overdebt for the last 40 years. It's because of the bad management by the political system. You are right. You must vote against them. I don't defend them. I feel ashamed of them. I have said in public that I am ashamed of the political system. Ladies and gents, thank you. I welcome the main speech by the New Democracy candidate, Nikos Kostopoulos. The rage we have within us must become something creative. I am angry too. I share your rage and fight by your side. You are the true pillar of our country. My fellow man, happy Easter. This is Nikos Kostopoulos, the New Democracy candidate. I'm fine, it's getting better day by day. I just called you to say you good morning. It's not easy to talk in public because people now want to throw yogurt. That's the reality. It's difficult for us. We are embarrassed. We must apologize about things we are not responsible of. Bum, traitors, politicians. Efthimiou, it's a former minister of a Socialist Party. You waste all your money. Thieves, you should be ashamed for insulting the Golden Dawn. Bum, traitors, politicians. Yanni, shut up. No, let me finish. Don't you shoot at me. I'm talking. 2,000 people every day. It's been 2 years now. They've been telling us that the public sector has collapsed. But no one of those ridiculous politicians has said that illegal immigrants are the main cause of everything. If the Golden Dawn increases its percentage, they will be forced to leave. In every neighborhood that the Golden Dawn parades, order prevails. This is what should happen in every corner of Greece. You have made a mess of everything. How are you supposed to serve us? I'm thinking of moving abroad. You're not good in opposition. You are negative about everything. Our program is quite realistic and can be implemented since Monday, even if the country goes down. I read it. You should know we are angry. Yes, but anger doesn't not lead anywhere. I think you're from many. Look, I vote for Capenaros, a friend of mine, who is candidate for the right-wing party of Kamenos. My family and my children will vote for Tsipras, the left radical front. But me, Tsipras, I've always voted for the right wing. But my children are right. You should get used to the idea that the country will have a strong popular mandate since Monday. Stand up and welcome Mr. Nicholas Nikololiakos, the General Secretary of the Golden Dawn. No agreement with the memorandum parties. We will fight them till the end. Tonight with us, the leader of the victory, Mr. Vangelis Venizelos. We start to we start talking a while about the exit polls. For the left radical front, 15.5 to 18.5. For the Socialist Party, 14 to 17. Obviously, this minister has lost the elections. Alexandros, good evening. How are you? Oh, I am very well. I'm not elected. The back is ours. I haven't celebrated like this since 1996.
What will you do when you first enter the parliament? You must wait and you see. Will you change the law? Will you change the country? I try for this. What will be the first measure to change? All the illegal immigration out of my country, out of my home. What way will you use to do that? Use your imagine. Legal way. Use your imagination.
No, that's it, stop. So sorry, it was a little long for a trailer, but it's mostly a raw material. So we are here to present the project, and actually it's the difficulty we have, it's how to finish a story which has in reality no end. And we have some ideas about that, and we will be here to talk of this problem with you.
And on Friday, probably we will have a proper trailer.
Subtitled in English. I worked at night on that. And I forgot to mention that StoryDoc is a part of this project. who co-produces with me. Thank you, Kostas.
Thank you. So, project number 14, The New Wave. Jessica?
Hi, if we can take the lights, 'cause, I don't have a trailer. My name is Jessica Jacobs. I'm a geographer from London, and I've always used, well, for the last 4 years, I've been using film as a research method, a kind of creative, collaborative film approach. And I did a 3-year project in Damascus and Amman, using a kind of certain kind of way of filming to make short films, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. They were all interlinked, and they were all about heritage and identity in Jordan and Syria, made with partners there. And the idea that they could be seen individually, used for teaching, or just stand alone as films, as documentaries, short documentaries. And each time I used a different format. I was trying to experiment with different film formats. Nico, yeah. This pitch is for a film I haven't made yet, so obviously I don't have a trailer. I've changed from what I was doing as well. So this is the Sinai. There's Cairo, and just down there is Sharm el-Sheikh. I spent about 15 years doing research in this area as well. And I've made a film before about Bedouin communities there. This is a hotel where the president of Egypt used to live, the former president of Egypt, Mr. Mubarak. He just used to live over to the right there. And this is a golf course where the president of Egypt and his sons used to play golf. And they used to have an office overlooking this golf course, or they still have an office overlooking this golf course, where all the leaders of different parts of the world, where he did all his business. I mean, as he was getting older, he spent most of his life, daily life, in this space. And the hotel belongs to a certain man called Mr. Hussein Salem, who's the financial arm of the old regime, let's say. I don't have a picture of the president's house. So this is his neighbor, the Sultan Qaboos of Oman's house. He has apparently a golden staircase inside. And he knocked down 2 houses to make that house and used British engineers to make it. And there's a sea. So if you can imagine that, next to that, I think it's, I can't remember the state, it's not Azerbaijan, but I think it's Kyrgyzstan, there's a guy, and the Sultan of Brunei, and Mr. Salem, and Mr. Khalid Salem, and then there's Allah and Gamal Mubarak, and Hosni Mubarak, and Cesar Mubarak, and the family over there in 5 villas with their own jetty. They have the biggest conference center in Egypt is there as well. I think it was bought by a Saudi prince, but that's part of the complex. And this was a recent conference promotion that they had. I think it was one of the World Economic Forums just before the revolution. So they got what they were asking for. They got Egypt open for change. This is obviously a neoliberal approach, but and this is one of the pieces of art you can get in the area. So there's a political part to tourism in Egypt, and I've been given access to the carpet that was used in that office in that hotel, and I wanted to take that carpet. I thought about it as a metaphor, because just up the road from all those hotels is, or where they used to live, they've actually, that hotel, there was a Bedouin community that was displaced to build a lot of that hotel, and now they live there. And there's in Bedouin culture, there's a thing called a makad, which is an area of hospitality where you have tea or a public space. I mean, it's difficult to describe. There's one there. Anybody that's passing by can sit down and have a cup of tea in the makad, and it's a square space, and it's a symbol If there is a Bedouin architecture, the Makad is a very important part of it. It's even repeated in the windows and the square shape of the houses. So in architectural terms, it's quite important.